Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Bison video blog. It's our awards postseason style, along with Jeff Kolpack, and look who's in studio with us, the one and only Big E.
Did we have to bring him in?
We have to bring him in. We also had to go back to our old set. We heard the head coach was not thrilled with the newfangled set that we brought out before the championship, so we went old school just for the head coach.
I guess if you win back-to-back titles, you can
voice
your opinion. I don't have to agree with it, but you can voice your opinion.
Did you bring any props for us, by the way?
We'll have to see.
We'll have to wait and see. It's our 2012 award style as we wrap up this football season. As we've done last season, we'll divvy out our MVPs who stood out for us and also look forward into next season as we recap what was just another magical season as NDSU has won a second straight national championship and bring back 20 starters to look forward for 2013. But let's look back first to 2012. We'll first start with our MVP picks. And you and E have the same guy. You're each voting for Grant Olson. Tell me why.
You know, he was the guy in the middle, I thought. And MVP to me is just more than on the field. I thought he was a leader off the field. I thought he was a leader emotionally. I think we saw that in the title game where the guy was, you know, proverbially just almost down and out, and yet he found enough, you know, intestinal fortitude to get out there. That to me is just an MVP. The guy in the middle, you take all those factors, and he's the guy.
You look at the game against Wofford, that speaks alone, but Kolpack referred to it back in October that he was the can't afford to lose guy, and that's shown no more than the championship game.
I mean, the defense was what this unit was based on, and to me, he was the glue. Yeah. You had the playmakers in Marcus Williams, you had Kyle Emanuel, you had Cole Jarrett, you had a lot of great playmakers, but he was the glue. He was the guy in the middle of that defense. He got everyone lined up. He made the calls. You know, he was kind of the heart and soul, so I'm going with the glue on the best unit on the team.
My vote is for Marcus Williams, and this is, I know, controversial considering how he played in the playoffs. Granted, he had 2 picks in the championship game, but also he got beat in the Georgia Southern game. You'll remember that on that touchdown catch, and also late in the game. But he had so many plays where he changed the momentum of the game. Youngstown State comes right to mind, and we'll get to that in a second. But for the second year in a row, he had 7 picks. He also, in the Illinois State game, Jeff, comes to mind, he had that kickoff return for a touchdown. The Bison were down 10-zip. He returns it for a touchdown, and right back, the Bison were back in that game. He did that so many times this season.
No arguing. I mean, no arguing that he's a legitimate candidate. And the head coach did call him the most dynamic player in the division, and for a good reason.
He had that big pick against Northern Iowa. He had the game clincher interception against Southern Illinois as well that wrapped up that win. Best lineman, and now this is a new category that we didn't do last season. And, of course, for the big horses up front that NDSU wins so many. I'll start with you. You go with Billy Turner.
This is my type of category, man. These guys don't get don't get all the stardom and all the bright lights and stuff, but Billy Turner is the cornerstone. The left tackle is the best, you know, the marquee position on the offensive line. We saw how that offensive line improved as the season went along. The championship game, arguably their best game of the season. The running game, that 2,000-yard running backs again. I just think Billy Turner is the marquee player on that unit. And I mean, there's other good choices, I mean, that you guys will get to. But for my money, he was a first-team All-American. Yeah. Billy Turner was the man.
Not a bad pick, but correct me if I'm wrong, this was the top defensive team in the country, was it not?
It was true.
And that doesn't happen by accident. I go with the middle, Drevlo, Juckham, Levon Perry. I think you put that one spot there. It's the hardest position in the FCS to recruit, to get guys of that size and speed, because FBS covets those guys, and there are not a lot of them out there. There's a lot of receivers out there, a lot of defensive backs out there, but to find that position in the middle to be that effective is really tough to do.
Well, Billy Turner's growing on trees, though. It's easy to find left tackles who can dominate.
Did Billy Turner lead the country in anything?
You even hedged your bet, man.
Maybe
you picked like 8 guys. You picked like
We're just getting going now.
On the team, man. Come on.
Can I get mine in here for a quick second? I've got Joe Lund.
Please hurry, though.
At senior center because he had to step up. They lost Paul Kornick, who was an All-American, Austin Richard, who was a 4-year starter, and Lund came in and was the glue up front. He was terrific all season long, and a guy that also, he was part of that class of 2008. We've talked about it. One of 3 guys left on the team that went through that 3-9 season, and now he goes out with a 2-time champion. I thought he really brought along Josh Colville and Joe Haig, the 2 red shirts up front. He could leave Billy Turner, and he knew what Tyler Gimmelstead was, but I thought he was fantastic all season up front.
I agree, and he's, again, that veteran presence. You like him at center.
He was very, very good. Most improved, and both of you guys go to a Brainerd guy and Joe Haig. Tell me why.
Well, here's a guy who took a spot vacated by an All-American and Paul Kornick, and that's not easy in itself. He had his troubles early in the year, and sometimes in the middle of the year, too. There's on a couple of occasions, he did get beat on the outside. Tell you what, in the playoffs, the Bison were running right when they needed some yards. And during Sam Houston in the second half, they went right sometimes when they needed yards. And that one of the reasons is Joe Haig.
This is a guy who was a redshirt walk-on who comes on and was a great impact player for him this year up front.
He reminds me a lot of Travis Beck in some respects. You know, the way he came out of nowhere. A guy who redshirted, bided his time, and as a freshman just burst onto the scene. Not quite as dynamic as Travis Beck with the interceptions and stuff, but like Jeff said, as the season wore on, he got better. Yes, he got beat early on, maybe overpowered early on in the season. But once the playoffs hit, you know, you didn't hear about him, which is good. You don't want to hear about an offensive lineman. And in that Sam Houston State Championship game, like you said, they went right on a lot of big running plays.
I vote for Christian Dudzik, and you guys maybe will argue with me on this, but Dudzik, who was an all-conference player last year in his redshirt freshman year at corner, then comes over and moves to safety, and I thought he was even better this season. He had 3 picks. He was huge there. He also came back, returned kicks against South Dakota. We found out he was the fastest guy on the team based on that game. He was an impact guy back there especially after Colton Hegel was lost for the season against Colorado State. I thought there was time and time again that he made big tackles, especially in the playoffs. He's my most improved guy. He had a fabulous 2012.
I can't argue with that. I mean, we can't argue with anything, really.
True.
But I'm suspicious of Green with Big E on a pick, so I'm a little worried about this.
Well, the thing with Dudzik, I agree, but he was good to begin with. So for me to say
really
most improved,
well,
I just think of someone who kind of came off the radar.
He moved to here.
No, he improved, but I'm saying to go from here to here, you don't have much room to improve.
Because Joe Haig went from here to here.
Off the screen.
You know what? You're just going to argue all the season. Now, this next award is attributed to my buddy next to me here for our Beast Mode moment. Of course, that debuted in Sioux Falls before the South Dakota game when the Beast Mode shirt came out. This is our Beast Mode moment of the regular season. I'll have you lead off with your pick.
Okay, you got mad I didn't take Marcus Williams as MVP. Well, he had the beast mode moment of the season, in my opinion. The regular season, that is. The 98-yard interception return for a touchdown against Youngstown State. This is when both of them are ranked in the top 5. You know, I think it set the tone for the rest of the conference and the rest of the season. That game was 14-7.
Yeah.
You know, Youngstown State potentially coming to tie that game. 98 yards later, touchdown 21-7, 48-7 final. The rest is history. And I think that was kind of one of the signature moments of the season and kind of sparked them from that point.
Prior to the Brock Jensen touchdown run against Georgia Southern, that was as loud as the Dome got all season long, was that play on Marcus's interception return.
Yeah, and as we just saw it was came at a critical time of the game, too.
Your Beast Mode moment goes all the way back to early in the season.
Well, it's the second game of the year, and it's the FBS game, and it's the safety. When Cole Jurek knifed in, and Andre Martin, as we see, came in there, and Travis Beck finished him off. You know, that just doesn't happen in FBS games, a safety. You know, you think an FBS team can run for 1 or 2 yards when they have to, but to get flattened like that, I thought just sent a message to the rest of the year.
And that was right after, if you guys remember, the Bison got stopped on a 4th and 1 play, thinking they're trying to go in for a touchdown. Colorado State stopped them, and then that was the very next play, was the Bison responded and got that.
And that just sets the tone for the season. Craig Bowl trusted that defense. 4th and 1, if we don't get it, fine. We're going to pin you deep, we're going to get good field position, or we're going to get a safety. And they did that many times this year. Even the championship game, 4th and 1 from the 2-yard line, they're going for it, because if they don't get it, they got that defense.
Because they got a safety in the bag, don't they?
They want to get 2 safeties.
Now, I'm going to go back even earlier than you for my Beast Mode moment of the regular season. That was game 1, and that's when we all got introduced to John Crockett and how good he could possibly be. This run against Robert Morris was unbelievable. He got pinned in by, it seemed like 5 guys, somehow got through that and scored the touchdown. The Dome went nuts, and that's when we found out, holy cow, the 2-year wait was probably worth it for the Tito Gray Star.
2 years of stories that we did and 2 years of blogs and things like that all kind of came to a consensus on that one run.
That was a fabulous play and really set the tone for what we expect out of him this season.
Makes you wonder if Craig Bull hit the spin button on the remote control because it looked like a Nintendo run. I think
It
Jeff
really was.
Kolpack really described
my
it at the
line.
time. Yeah, I'm giving
stealing
you,
my
I am
lines.
credit. Well, to Nintendo, let's go Xbox 360.
Well,
let's
Nintendo's more
live
his.
in the now. What, do you want ColecoVision over there? Jeez.
It's old school. Now our beast mode moment for the playoffs, and we'll harken back to your MVP and Grant Olson. What he did against Wofford was unbelievable in that game.
29 tackles. You know, they had the big fullback and Eric Breitenstein. I mean, if I had the "Damn I Am Good" T-shirt right now, I would ceremoniously
Give it to him,
present it to him because Ole Anderson is part of the Minnesota Wrecking Crew. I could see Grant Olson as the third unofficial member of the Minnesota Wrecking Crew. Ole Anderson, Arn Anderson, Grant Olson, they're all cousins. But 29 tackles, I mean, just seeing the emotion he had after that game.
He was wiped.
I mean,
He actually was.
and he just the pure emotion. He gave credit to his D-line in front of him. I mean, how many contacts did he make? 29 tackles. That's unbelievable. So that's the definition of beast mode. I think he flipped that switch right before that game started.
He was also a cowboy, so he's not only a wrestler but also a cowboy for Mr. Olson. Your beast mode moment of the playoffs.
Well, I have a beast mode moment, singular. That's moments. Do you know the difference between singular and plural? That's 29 beast mode moments.
But it was so good. It was a continuous moment.
Read the script
it was
next
like
time.
it was like one whole thing.
I go to the 4th and 3 or 4th and 2 at the 3-yard line. Semifinals, national TV audience, 4th down, trip to the championship game on the line. The Bison are behind. 3 minutes left in the game. Brock Jensen up the middle, as we see right here. Touchdown. Place goes crazy. One singular moment, one beast mode moment.
It was as loud as you've ever heard it. It was louder than when Cole Heckendorf caught the pass from Steve Walker on that play because we talked about it. This was the hardest game for them to win all season long.
Really tough to pick that one, Kolpack. I'm trying to add a little variety to this. Yeah, we could have all said Brock Jensen's signature QB draw, but Grant Olson was the glue. But yes, that was a huge moment. Like you said, that could have been as loud as we've ever heard the Dome. The season's on the line, and, you know, Brock Jensen struggled throwing the ball at times compared to last year. Some of his accuracy was gone. But when the game was on the line and he put the ball in his hands, he was great with his feet this year. He had the rushing touchdowns in the championship game, and 6'3", 225. You can trust that guy in short down situations.
You're not as smooth in the studios. You're out on.
I'm just throwing haymakers here. Come on. My beast mode moment for the playoffs goes back to the South Dakota State game, where it was the moment where everybody's wondering what in the world just happened. It was called the McCluster play, where Ryan Smith was lined up right behind center, and actually the ball is snapped to him, where everybody else went one way, and Smith went in for a touchdown. That was the backbreaker, in my opinion, against South Dakota State. In the game that was 14-3 at that point. The Bison went up 21-3, and it was over after that. You couldn't describe what happened on that play because nobody knew.
So the little guy gets the beast mode moment.
I think
Very
so.
nice
It was
touch.
a fabulous play.
And it almost turned into a precursor for the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Brent Vegan's play calling
No
was
doubt.
pretty imaginative, and you saw a lot of that in the championship game. I don't know if the two-point conversion was a called play, but the jump pass from Crockett early in that game, Crockett's 57-yard run where they had the little inside wrinkle and pitched it out to him. They had a lot of wrinkles they added in, and they took advantage of the 3 weeks. they had leading
Great
into that.
observation. Nobody had better play calling in the playoffs than Brent Vegan, no doubt.
Pre-game show. Now, we had 15 of them to choose from. Now, tell me which was your best pre-game show in your mind this season.
I have to go back to the homecoming show against Youngstown State when we brought out the mask.
Yes,
and when Big E brought out the penguin in the pocket. And when you got booed, it just warmed my heart.
Well, that was the first time we had like a crowd around us to watch us. It was great. I'll agree with that.
Hey, somebody had to take that.
What about for you?
Well,
You had so many. Everybody came up to you in Frisco.
You had
wondering
15
where
great
you
moments. How
awesome
can we
stuff.
compete?
I had a lot of props, and we've had on-location props,
Yes.
but it's time to bring out the in-studio prop. I gotta go.
Everybody was wondering where this was in Texas.
You know, you can't just leave it out there. It's got to be under lock and key. I have security guards guarding this thing. You know, everyone wants a piece of the belt, but we brought the belt out in Southern Illinois, and it just kind of got a life of its own. It's not like it's original. Everyone does the belt. Aaron Rodgers does the belt, but for some reason, people
They
gravitated to the prop, and based on that, that is my pregame moment of the year, Southern Illinois.
Now, I had two of them. So I'm kind of going off E's deal. The first one was definitely in the student section when he came out of the student section to a massive throng. That by far was one of my favorites.
What did we create, by the way?
My second one was when the nickel trophy was displayed with our faces on each side of it, and that was with our good friend Terry Vanderbeek looking at us, wondering what in the world is going on. That I really enjoyed. That was one of my
The
favorites.
nickel, by the way, and nobody please steal it, but it is locked away in my man cave.
Until 2013 when the pick'em restarts. Before we go, we have to look forward to 2013. Most potential to break through as we look forward to spring ball starting in late March. Who do you got?
Well, I'm not looking at it so much as a breakthrough, but look for Darius Anderson, the running back from Valley City State, the transfer. The coaches absolutely raved about him this fall as a scout team player. Interested to see what he'll do.
How about for you?
Well, before we move on, I'll give credit to Kolpack. I believe last year's pick in this category was
Yes.
Grant Olson. So,
Thank you for reminding me.
Well, you know,
I had Mike Hardy, and Mike Hardy had a good year.
and he had a 2-point conversion.
He did.
That
We
was a
did
huge
that.
play,
Yes.
but I'm going to go with Demetrius Gray, just based
pick.
on the wide receivers were solid this year, but they didn't really have that Warren Holloway go-to guy, a
breakaway speed.
a downfield guy. I think Zach Vrah and Ryan Smith will be just fine, and they'll be solid contributors. But I think a downfield threat, Demetrius Gray is a guy who can provide that, and that's one thing they didn't have maybe consistently this season.
I'm going to go up front. That's kind of been our theme throughout the awards show. I'm looking for the kindred superstar, and Jack Planker's really come through. Granted, I'm not sure how much playing time he's going to get considering everybody comes back outside of Joe Lund, but he looked even bigger than when we saw him when he came into camp in August when we saw him in Frisco. I mean, the man is already huge to begin with. He's 6'8", 300-something. He's just gargantuan.
You know, he traveled and dressed for the game. He wasn't going to play, but as almost as a reward for his development this fall, they let him dress for the game.
Well, if Ole and Arne Anderson are the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, Grant Olson's an honorary member. Jack Plankers is the bodyguard of that whole group because that guy is massive. And I agree. Once that guy gets on the field, I think he's going to kind of, that drive block, power run game. He's going to fit well into that.
Offensive line can be really, really scary good for next season. So there are our awards. You can debate them to your heart's content. I'm sure these two have already will once we're done taping today. But that's a look at our 2012 postseason wrap-up. A reminder, make sure you get a copy of this weekend's forum. Go ahead and display that for
There's
the
one
fabulous
section,
photos there
two
from Dave
sections.
Sampson and Kerry Snyder, who took some great stuff. And he and Jeff have complete coverage in there as well, along with Kevin Schnepp and everybody from the Forum newspaper, the special commemorative section recapping the 2012 Bison football season. For the one and only champ, Ole Anderson, that's Eric Peterson and Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo, the 2012 Bison Football Awards here on the Bison Video Blog.